السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Let's see.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Okay.
Wait a minute. I got no sound, which is not good. What's going on?
I can hear you.
I can hear you fine, Chef.
Oh, here we go. I couldn't hear you guys.
Oh, okay. There you
Let's
go.
see.
I have this problem like Discord.
You guys can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's opening us up tonight? I don't even know what we're talking about.
I think we're doing like 2 or 3 topics. I think we're doing a living on cult compounds, I guess, or other lands. For like
yeah.
for like a good like
Gotcha.
5-10 minutes, and then we're doing like things folks don't know. For
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Assalamu alaikum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد. Welcome to another installment of the R2F show. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about a few topics. I think we're going to start the show off by talking about the these blessed compounds that Mubarak Jelani and TMOA, or Mubarak Jelani, allegedly established. We're not going to go too far into it because it's kind of obvious. Everybody kind of knows what the real deal about these things. I mean, so I'll pitch the propaganda, and then we can go from there. So it's commonly said that, Mubarak Jelani saved the members or the ex-members of the Dar al-Islam by taking them out of the inner city ghettos, the projects, and then establishing communities in the rural areas, which they call these lands or compounds or Islamic villages, where they have established really true Islamic villages where it's just so nice. People say that they got their lives were saved because they left the inner cities, and living in the country has been so great. And one person even mentioned that it's been the establishment of like little African villages for African Americans to live, and all these different things. So that's the narrative that's constantly presented by members of the cult. But for those of us that have actually, either lived on these lands, been to these lands, and seen the reality of what actually goes on up there, we know that it's not. We know that it's far from the truth of what actually has been established. For one, the vast majority of people in the TMOA cult actually do not live on the lands. They actually still live in the cities. They might not live in the major cities, like whether New York City or whatever, but they live in this neighboring cities of where the closest city to wherever the properties are.
Yep.
And a lot of people still live in the ghettos or subsidized housing. So that's just one myth. You go to these lands and they're ghost towns. There may be a handful of families that still living up there that actually could afford to live up there. And speaking just from the New York land, which is like the headquarters of TMOA, for about 20, 30 years, people lived in like worse than third world conditions. I mean, you're talking about people living without running water, without working septics or working sewage systems, without electricity, heating their homes with like, firewood, firewood stoves, wood burning stoves, which is nothing wrong with that. But they didn't have the luxuries, or not even, I don't even say luxuries, the basic living needs that someone would have from where they actually left, which is maybe subsidized housing or a Section 8 housing or an apartment in the city. There's even stories of young men who grew up on the lands that when they actually, got of age, 18, 19, 20 years old, and actually started living by themselves in the cities, that they didn't even know how to flush a toilet. They didn't know what the handle for the toilet was to flush it because they're used to flushing their toilets with water pitchers.
So
Go ahead.
so let me try to help the viewers along a little bit. And for us, like so the narrative is that Gilani took them out of the ghettos. So they were in ghettos, which, let's just set aside the fact that this is not true, that they were all in ghettos or whatever. But the narrative is they were living in an economic and social situation in which it was a ghetto. And he took them from that to this, some sort of utopia. Sorry about that. I had some rogue some rogue intervention. Anyway, so the narrative is that they were in ghettos, full-fledged in ghettos. Okay, and then they took them, Gilani, under his direction and his guidance, took them from the ghetto to a place that was this rural religious utopia. Okay, and how great it is. So now that we know that's the narrative, and I don't think anyone in any of the loyalists or supporters are going to say that that's not the case. They will say, yeah, took them out of the ghettos and took them to these lands and these campuses, they try to call them. Okay, so let's look at what the definition of a ghetto is. Listen to this. A poor urban area occupied primarily by a minority group or groups. Okay, so the first thing about a ghetto is that the people are poor, and the people of TMOA across the board in general are poor. They are not they are not would not be considered to be, upper class, definitely not rich. I mean, there might be a few people who are wealthy here and there, but the majority of people are on food stamps, government assistance, Social Security, depending on those things, as we did a couple of shows back, where they were literally coming for your grandma's Social Security check. I mean, so these are the type of people that's made up of. And so the number one thing, the first thing in the definition of a ghetto is that the people are poor. And so if anyone no one should disagree with the fact that the people of TMOA in general are poor. Urban area. Now, I'll give you that. They took them out of an urban area and took them to a rural area. Okay, so that part might not apply, but a poor urban area occupied primarily by a minority group or groups. Now, are the members of TMOA a minority among just in demographics in the country? No, they're African Americans, which usually African American are a minority group. Are they not a minority within even the Muslim community? Yes, they're a minority. They are very small compared to the any masjid. The nearest masjid to any TMOA location is going to have more people who frequent that place than TMOA. Yeah. So they're poor. They're a minority, and just the basic definition of a ghetto, of people who are in a ghetto, is that's what it's made up of. So just on the definition, TMOA is a ghetto. Full stop. We can stop right there. You live in a ghetto by definition. And we weren't the ones who first used that word. It was Jelani who was talking about, he took you out of the ghettos and took you to these lands. No, you went from, at the very least, from a ghetto to a ghetto. At the very least, that's what you did, because that's when you went from being poor people in a minority group in a specific location. And the definition goes a little bit deeper. And let me just hit this home, because I think if we let people get away with this fantasy of this whole took them from the ghettos, and then they might never be able to grasp it. So a ghetto, often called the ghetto, is part of a city which members of a minority group live, especially as a result of political, social, legal, environmental, or economic pressure. So so let's think about this now. Let's be objective. Have people not been pressured to live on these lands? The answer is yes. Move to the land within 30 days. Anybody who's not on the land is off the Jamaat. Even though the people don't, everybody doesn't do it, but is there pressure there? Okay. Is there social pressure to be on these lands? Absolutely. Political, within TMOA politics, we already know the person not living on the land, they're off they're off of it, they're out of it, they're not in the antisocial behavior. So there is political pressure in TMOA to be there in these ghettos. We already were able to determine that these are ghettos. And then the deeper definition, which talks about why they are ghettos, is because of these different types of pressure: the political pressure, the social pressure, and that is there. The legal pressure from a government perspective, like United States government perspective, the legal pressure is not there. But within TMOA and the TMOA mandates of you not paying your percentage, your dues or whatever, and you're pressured, you're off the land, or you have to do certain things to remain there. And there's lots of pressure to be there. Okay, so social, legal, environmental, and economic pressure, all of that is rolled up into the reasons why TMOA, the people in TMOA, are 100% considered a ghetto. Every single land, by definition, is a ghetto, and I don't think we can dispute that. I mean, so with that breakdown there, we can then move forward and understand that if you agree that you or your parents lived in a ghetto before they moved to these compounds, then know that from here on out, in case you didn't know, alhamdulillah, we're here to educate ourselves and anyone else who's viewing, that they went from, if they were in a ghetto before, they went from there to what, for sure, 100% certain, we know with firsthand knowledge that these are all ghettos in which they went to. So
exactly.
Yep.
And from someone who's grown up in the country, right? I grew up where they established their headquarters in Hancock / Deposit, New York. Me and my family grew up there. There's a significant difference between like city ghettos and country ghettos.
Oh yeah, hold up. Let me just mention one more thing. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But the last part of this is, it says ghettos are often known for being more impoverished than other areas of the city. So think about this. The cities in which you live in, like in Tennessee, it's Dover, Deposit compared to the land, and different than in New York. So you have to compare that closest city, or the city in which, you're kind of in and around that zip code or whatever. And without a doubt, this is one of the telltale signs of a ghetto. It's more impoverished than this city in which they're in. And I swear by Allah, let one person come, please, and tell us that these lands are not more rundown, more impoverished, less amenities, the roads are sometimes even undrivable, the homes dilapidated, they're more impoverished than even just the common homes and areas in these other cities. So that's a full breakdown. I think we can completely 100% be certain that these are ghettos. Okay, go ahead, Jaffa.
And that's a good point, because even in the small neighboring towns, Hancock, Deposit, they're a lot smaller than the city, but there's certain neighborhoods like, oh, that's the ghetto. That's the ghetto of Deposit. That's the ghetto of Hancock. 10 times better than the living conditions on Islamberg. Right. And then they one of the things that they also promote is, to establish these self-sufficient lands. So there's nothing self-sufficient about them whatsoever. Right. All their heating, whether it's propane, wood, oil, whatever it is, come from outside of the land. They may have, some might have like little stores with like potato chips and basic sugar and stuff on there, but people go and take their food stamps and go and shop in the neighboring cities to get their food. And even for like Islamic things, people send their kids to the Muslim schools set up by the other Muslim communities. People use the bearing services that are set up by other Muslim communities. So there's nothing whatsoever that is self-sufficient about any of these properties. It's literally, like Mubarak said, they took the ghetto, and you could literally, if you just envision this, lifted it up, or lifted the people up, took them out of like, say, projects or like apartment complexes, and put them into a trailer park. And if anybody that's from the country, the trailer park is the ghetto of the suburbs. And that's exactly what you establish. And then the living conditions are very bad. Like if there was an inspector that went to the land, I don't know, I'm thinking about Islamberg because I don't know so much about the other properties, but I know specifically in Islamberg, if an inspector went up there and went and examined all the homes, the majority of the homes, people will be shut down and told that you cannot live in there.
There's multiple
because
homes.
you
I
can
know in
walk
Tennessee
inside,
that-
you can see right down to the ground, you can see septic coming down the roads, going into the water supply. That like they have a well on Islamberg that there's like, they call it the runoff, where everybody gets their water, right? And it was like Shaji said, this is just like Zamzam water. It's the same as Zamzam water. People actually like think it's like blessed, like the well of Zamzam, right? It's an artesian well. The only problem is that if you know how water system works, water that comes from the ground, right? You have people that have septics that runs into the same ground, right? And maybe that's why it tastes so good. It got a little extra spice in it.
No, but I mean, I have seen people with my own eyes. They have the sewer system, or like the trailers. No, there's no sewer system, but like the sewage, the waste that goes out from underneath the trailer, they just have a pipe just running off, just a little ways into the woods or whatever, and it's just there. I mean, it might have a hole, and there's been people who they like dig a hole for it to run off into. There's been kids who have fallen inside of them.
Ooh.
Yes, fallen inside
Ooh.
of them. I mean, just dumping, porta potties. I mean, people have had porta potties, which is basically a toilet, toilet that you use in your home, and you take it out and dump it. So there's no indoor plumbing, no indoor, bathroom for it. I mean, I'm talking about 10, 15 years. And then like, just, when people finally got there, and the reasons why they did not have the indoor plumbing or whatever, because it cost about, I remember when I was on the land, it cost about 10 grand to basically buy like just a small trailer, get septic, running water, actually run to where literally you turn your faucet on and the water comes out. You flush your toilet, it goes out and into a septic system or into a place where it is, is wasted in a sanitary way. For that whole thing, start to finish, I believe it cost me about 10, 12 grand, everything. And people don't have that. They get the money up to get a trailer, which I mean, literally, it's basically a cardboard box on payments. So you think, oh, well, I bought a trailer. No, they financed a trailer, and they're probably still paying on it to this day. But to buy it cash, I mean, you might pay $4,000 or $5,000 for a trailer. They're not that expensive, but people are paying $500 down, or maybe nothing down, and then $500 a month and financing these joints. And then they don't have the money. They don't have the money to actually hook up the septic system. I mean, if someone bought a septic system and got it put in by the one guy who, you know, and of course it wasn't a Muslim, it was just some guy from the city who always came to the land and, you know, did that, you know, because he had a backhoe or he had, you know, heavy equipment, which of course
Yep.
the land didn't have, to actually set it up for him. And of course, no one had the expertise to even run the septic system because they thought, oh, you just run a pipe out in the ground. No, but you actually have to like do the lines a certain way and everything so that it can disperse properly. There's lots of stuff to it, but the point is all these services were taken and done by people who were off the land outside of the community, and the cost, even though it might not seem like nothing, I mean, you know, but even that small cost was too much for people to do, and they went years, sometimes even decade plus, without just basic, you know, plumbing, water, even electric. I mean, we had people who were running extension cords from one person's home to another. I'm talking about that long way, hundreds of feet, maybe even 100 yards, longer than a football field. You know what I mean? So and stuff like that. So I mean, that's something that I witnessed firsthand.
And one thing I wanted to touch on is, you know, just thinking about. I was talking about this earlier. Maybe it was yesterday, but about how much, like you hear, like when people like tell these stories. And you notice it's always told from like a snapshot perspective, right? So like when they start talking about like how great it was to move to the land, they start talking about like when they were kids coming from the city and then being in the country. And for a kid, yeah, that's going to be great. Like you come from like the inner city and all of a sudden you're out in like the woods and there's streams and there's animals and you really have no perspective because for kids, they don't really know what's going on around them. Same thing for adults. Adults that's never really been in the country, moving out to the country is like a great thing. But you never hear them talk about their actual life living on these properties. Because, yeah, I could be like, oh, yeah, you know, I came to the country and there was trees, there was deer, bears, fishing, eagles flying around. You know, I could just run around and this and that, blah, blah. But then you'll never hear about them telling like, yeah, you know, I went 10 years without being able to flush my toilet. You know, we used to have to send people, our kids, they couldn't go to school because it was too cold. You know, I had to send them down to the runoff with buckets on their shoulders to fetch water for us. You know, like you lived in some kind of African village, right? But one of the big things that this has done is, if you really want to look at, okay, let's just say you give Jelani credit for getting y'all out of the cities into the country, which in fact we know that's not actually true. Right, we know that members of the Dar al-Islam, even before Mubarak Jelani even showed up on scene, that they were already looking and investigating and purchasing properties in the country. For instance, there was people already from the Dar al-Islam up here in Binghamton, New York, that my parents knew before Mubarak Jelani ever came. They were already scouting for land in the area. They were already doing it, right? So Jelani just came and took credit for it, but look at, like Mubarak mentioned, the tens of thousands of dollars that it took for people to get on these lands and all this and all that, right? And I think that one of their TMOA propaganda channels put out like this thing about generational wealth, right? Where have y'all progressed, right, as far as generationally from moving on the lands, right? Because you move on the lands, you actually don't own anything, right? You don't own any of the property. You may own your trailer, which you can pull on or off the land, but you actually haven't advanced your family, the generation that's coming behind you. And what happens? All your kids have to start from the same starting point that you started from, raising up money, getting a job, raising up $1,000 to try to move another trailer onto the land that they're never going to own. Whereas where you have people that are out buying actual real estate, buying homes, investing their thousands of dollars in ways that's going to return for their family, right? And they could, you know, someone passes away, a child could inherit a house, doesn't have to buy it, you know, it advances a whole generation of people. Whereas in TMOA, you have the people that are just stuck generation after generation after generation. You have 4 generations where you look at as like, okay, at what generation was one better than the one prior to it? And you don't see it. You don't see anybody saying, oh yeah, my grandmother left me these 3 houses. My grandpa left us these houses. You know, I don't got to buy one. Where, like, you know, we see this as being just African Americans. We go into the workforce and we see old Billy Joe Smo or whatever. And I'm like, you know, he's 20 something years old. He inherited his great grandfather's house, never had a mortgage. You know, like, we see this. And this is the type of stuff that we try to establish for our children. Like, okay, I need to buy real estate. I need to get assets. I need to have something to pass on to my children. What is TMOA passed on to their children besides all these stories that they come up with? Just more and more stories. Nothing else besides stories, and more poverty, more subjugation, and then a dying system. Like, yeah, we need money. We need more money. We need more money. Y'all got to pay. We need more money.
Yeah.
Where's the progression?
Yeah, and well, I'll tell you where the progression went. So all these people in TMOA, they don't have anything to pass on to the subsequent generations. They're not passing anything down, to the point where they're even sending messages talking about they have people who are not even maintaining employment. I mean, like, there's a certain segment of the population that's always in flux between jobs and get in and out. And these are usually people who they don't have a profession or a skill or something in which they, you know, that's how they earn their money. They're professional in some area, or they have, you know, some skills, a plumber, electrician, carpenter, or something like that. And so usually people who don't have something like that, a skill to fall back on, then they wind up being these type of people who are, you know, is so-and-so working? His brother so-and-so working? I don't know. I thought he was working at Subway, but now he's at Quiznos, or you know, he was at Walmart, but now he's at Publix or Robertson's or whatever you got. So the thing is that if we want to know what happened to that, to passing that down to the generations, the TMOA people, the rank and file, the general population of TMOA, have nothing to pass down. However, Jelani's descendants and wives are fighting over what he passed down. You know, so that's where it went. It all left. You have nothing to pass down. He, had quite a bit that was accumulated, and that is now being fought over. So that's where it is.
Yep, he accumulated.
Let's calculate this real quick. Let's calculate this real quick. So we know Umnor has at least $5 million, right? $5 million. So let's there can't be more than 3,000 people in the Jamaat, right? Can't be more. Well, let's round it up to be extra safe and say there's 5,000 people in the Jamaat, right? And we know he got all this money from the Jamaat. So 5,000 people. This is parents, children's, everything, and $5 million. That means each one of y'all could at least get $1,000 each person in the Jamaat. So if you got a family, what's up with the stimulus checks?
Umnor definitely ain't giving y'all stimulus checks. No, but I mean, this idea that, Jelani was this grand visionary, right? And he had y'all move out there for a purpose. One of the things with being a leader is that you have to know your personnel and who you have that's qualified for these jobs. So I know for me living on the lands, a lot of people in the Jamaat would have like sheeps and cows and stuff and chickens, and they would all die because you guys aren't qualified to raise these animals. So as soon as it hit a wintertime, it would snow, they're all dead because they're just gonna freeze outside. So y'all not qualified to actually take care of the animals, right? And no one can say that they are, because in Red House on Virginia, right across from the land is the Amish, and the Amish are self-sufficient. They live by themselves, off the grid. They do everything they need to do. And they have ecosystem built. They have money. Y'all are just poor on poor on poor on poor. It's a cycle.
Let me tell you a story about in New York. So this is like even when I was on the juice, there was certain things that was like, man, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, right? Because I grew up in Deposit. It is a stereotypical dairy town. Like, the kids that I go to school with would be working on the farm, dealing with the dairy cows, and they come into school and they be smelling like manure, have dirt on their clothes. We know about this stuff, right? And he would send these directives over for people to do. Mind you, Islamberg is on a rocky mountain, right? No plains, no grass, no nothing, right? And he would send these directives over, and one of them was like one was like he told them to buy 1,000 ducks, right? So they're like, oh, Abuji said to buy 1,000 ducks, and like most people was like 1,000 ducks. How are we gonna do 1,000 ducks? So they went out and bought. It was 1,000 or 100. I forget what it was. It was like bird play. There was just dozens and dozens of ducks dying every single morning. But one of the things there was a constant thing in New York was that Shaji said that we have to have 100 cows up here, right? We have to have 100 cows. And I hate to pick on him, but like Ahmed Pearson, who was on his Shura Council, or he gave like this like heartfelt speech, like Shaji said that we gotta have 100 cows. And I hear some people saying that we can't do it up here. And I see in Pakistan, everybody got a cow in their backyard.
They worship it though.
This is not Pakistan, right?
Yeah.
So if you go to anybody, right, that raised cows before, right, there was like you need at least 1 acre per cow.
Mm-hmm.
So for 100 cows, you need 100 acres of just grazing land. Islamberg is like 20, 30 acres, period, of rock.
Yeah.
But like, it's like, okay, like these little things, like this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yep.
I remember one time, like we were on when I was living on land, there was like a little fad where everybody was getting chickens, right? We got chickens, everybody was getting chickens, getting eggs. And then all of a sudden, Sheikh Jelani became like a chicken expert. And he sent a message and said, you know when it's not a purebred chicken when the eggs are white. I was like, oh my God.
No,
What the
that reminds me of this study that was done in America where 58% of Americans believe that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. All right. So if you have a brown cow, that's where you get chocolate milk from. And the white cows give you regular milk. Like, no, like people just aren't really smart. Like I remember folks would buy animals and stuff, and like, oh, these are Abuji's animals. Like, then I promise you, he's not overseeing these animals. I promise you, the animals are all your own money that you went out and spent and purchased. Like I remember, Sal bought bees on the warehouse land. These are Abuji's bees, and these are Abuji's honey. She was trying to charge $17 for dark honey. No one's buying that jar of honey for $17. like it just not happening.
Man. Yeah, so living on, I mean, they can keep pushing out these narratives, but the thing is, like, our target audience has always been the people that are in the middle, they have common sense, that are willing to think, and are already starting to see the truth of this. So, like, they're doing like their channels, they're starting to put out all this content to try to like push all their propaganda. But all you're gonna do is wake up more people, because they're gonna, like, the people that know are gonna be like, this is bullcrap.
Yeah,
this is bullcrap. You're lying. You're telling the same old story over and over again. And it's funny how they don't have, it's like a one-trick pony. They don't have anything else besides just to keep telling these like fables and stories. Like when are you guys gonna put out like a lecture of Mubarak Jelani, of him teaching like in-depth Quranic or Islamic sciences? When is one of those gonna come out? No, you're gonna take a little soundbite of the one time that he might say something maybe a little close to Quran and Sunnah. Even though you do it, it's still like you find out, oh yeah, he just quoted a fabricated hadith. Y'all don't even know how to check if he said a Sahih hadith or not. But it's just gonna wake more and more people up. So I mean, I don't know what else we need to say about the lands. I mean, it's a farce. People don't live there. They're ghettos in the country, and they will continue to be, and they will continue to be empty, because I believe the younger generations are like, nah, that ain't for me.
Nah, but got the whole Team Youth channel now.
Yeah, they like when they
probably ran by someone who's like 50 or 60.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like MSA scouts.
Yeah, MSA scouts.
You know, like on one of the little clips, the brother was saying, and you know, sometimes these are people, honestly, that I have never had a run-in with or had a bad word to. I mean, like, they are like friends of my parents, and you know, been good to me or whatever. So I feel a little bad about having to really call them out on, really, sadly, the BS that they're spewing. But he said, you know, that the lands were a sanctuary or refuge for African American Muslims, like the American Muslims of African descent. It was for them. That's who it was for. And that it was a man, I can't remember the word that he used or the term that he used, but basically he was saying that it was the first of its kind and the only sanctuary for the American Muslims of African descent at large. Basically was trying to say that all Black people that are Muslim, this was for them. And that is 100% a lie. It's not even like can be mistaken or just hyperbole or just, no, that's a lie. It was not ever for everyone. It was exclusive. It was for people who gave bay'ah to Mubarak Jelani and who were loyal to him and who followed him. 99.9999999% the Muslims of African descent in America do not follow Jelani and they don't know who he is. How in the world were these lands for them? I've seen plenty of times where people were told that they could not just come on the land. And we were told that actually we should not associate with the Muslims at large. So how even would that even be possible when we're not to go to them as far as socializing and cooperating, communicating, and there's some back and forth going there, and they definitely weren't coming to us.
Mhm.
I mean, so how can we even fix our face to say that knowing it's a lie? Wallahi, it's a lie.
Yep.
If you have been on the land or lived on the land, and this brother, I know that he lives on the land. His children have lived there. He can't have said that by mistake. That was a lie. And why these people, seemingly honest, good people, are telling these lies and these fables and romanticizing this foolishness about Jilani and what he allegedly established here. No, he established a money-making scheme, and he did it to the point where he was able to leave $5 million plus for his family members to fight over because he did not do his will Islamically like he should have. That's the only thing that he left. Everything else is just problems and issues for you that you guys have done for yourself. But it was never any sort of utopia or anything like that established for the African American Muslims at large. This is a lie.
It's funny because like it's kind of like how if I don't watch much sports nowadays, right? I don't really pay attention to any of it, but how, like, even when I was in college in Michigan, at that level, you get press trained, right? So like, notice everybody gets an interview, they say the same damn crap. Everybody says the same thing. I'm just thankful for my team, that we worked hard together, we kept pushing. It's just like catchphrases that everybody just says and mixes them up in their own little thing, but they're all really just saying a bunch of nothing, right? Mm-hmm. It's like TMOA has these certain propaganda phrases and ideas that they know that once they get in front of people to speak, this is the stuff that they have to say, right? They have to say these certain things like, oh, Abuji saved us, and oh, self-sufficiency, and all these different things, only indigenous and this and that, right? They have to say these things. Just like the one brother, the one clip I was watching where I think we're going to touch on it a little bit, but where he was where you could tell he was struggling to actually think of anything tangible to say what his sheikh did. He's just like,
I got you. I got you. Hold on.
Yeah, pull it up. Like you can see, like he actually has nothing to say.
Let's watch the clip here from Brother Fulan here.
I think the sound's off.
Oh, I always have the sound off. Hold on, I got you. But yeah, no, like, especially because they're putting this out there for everyone to see. They have to get someone to say the most BS they can, knowing that is not true. And every time you see Notehead talk about Jelani, or the accounts of what happened when he was around and they were around him at the time. It's always them like grimacing in pain, like it's like he
Yeah, and the thing is, just like we broke down the ghetto thing. We take the definitions and we have to break it down to its finer points. Let me just get this across real quick, Amr.
Okay.
The thing is where like they use this word a lot, self-sufficient. We're the only self-sufficient, Muslim, American, African American community, whatever. Okay, what does self-sufficient mean? This is the words that they use. So we're gonna take the words that they use and actually try to break them down, see what does it actually mean. We did with ghetto, now self-sufficient. Self-sufficient, if you are self-sufficient, that means, for the most part, that doesn't mean every single solitary thing, like the Amish people. We can't say, oh, that's self-sufficient. I've seen the Amish dudes shopping at Walmart, right? I seen them there. They pull up with their buggy. I mean, they ain't driving a car, but they'll pull up with the horse and go into Walmart. So I mean, they do buy some things, but when we for TMOA and for those people that are listening to understand what self-sufficient is, if they're saying they're self-sufficient, think of the things that you need most and where do you get them from? For instance, first thing you need is, I would say, like lights or electricity or whatever. Where do you get it from? You get it from the local power grid. They supply it. It's not like you got solar and you're running your homes on solar or wind or, doing some way you set up. No. So you're not getting your power. You're not powering your homes. You're not self-sufficient in that regard. I think people do, a lot of people do have wells, but most of them run the wells off an electric pump, which the electricity comes from, yes, the local power grid. The food that you need, like if you need a jug of milk, if you need to have a cup of milk, you got that cup of milk from the grocery store, Walmart, Kroger, Albertsons, wherever you did, that's where you got that milk from. You don't have a cow somewhere in which you milk it and then drink it that day. Okay, so we can do that across the board with all the things that you use on a daily basis or that you need, and you're going to have gotten those things, 99.9% of them, from other than within that community that is self grown or cultivated. If you want, a salad, it didn't come from the garden out back. Most of the people, even if they want eggs, and that's one of the easiest things to do in the country, just have some chickens, and you don't even need a bunch. You could, I mean, my dad used to do it. We used to have chickens and we used to eat eggs, randomly. But for the most part, people's buying 60 eggs for their kids at Walmart, every week or every 2 weeks or whatever. So just in general, when you hear that word self-sufficient, so that we don't get too delusional, think to yourself, the things that I need the most, am I getting them due to my own self-sufficiency because we produce them with our own hands and we're able to produce these things? Or am I going and getting them like any other person would be in the city? So instead of living in the city and getting the things that you need from the city, you moved out of the city and then commute to the city to bring those things back to the country. That's actually what it is. There's no self-sufficiency there. Allah knows best.
We touched on so many things.
It's real low.
hold on, let me turn up on my computer. Where's YouTube at?
I hope this.
Jeez, it's real low. Can you hear Mubarak?
Barely. I can barely hear it.
What he's done for the American people. I mean,
Yeah. See what's YouTube.
Come on, engineer.
He's so funny. Because it's not low on freaking
What's the name of their channel?
I do not know.
Muslim historic or something.
American Muslim history. That's a lie.
They can't do anything without just telling the truth.
Why don't they just say TMOA propaganda, Jelani propaganda? That's what they should name the channel.
Let me try this.
Damn, it doesn't even pop up.
See, they're so ghetto. It doesn't even work. All right. Better?
I can't hear it.
I think basically.
No.
What's the
I think we touched
American
so
Muslim
many
history.
things.
American Muslim history? I put it in. It didn't even pop up anywhere.
I hope this.
Because they're not real. All right, so essentially, this brother here, because since their audio is ghetto and doesn't work, Try one more thing. Hold on.
Well, let me see if I can pull it up. If I could find their channel.
I'm gonna try this last thing. Let's see. The freaking video.
Where the
All right, here
hell
we
is
go.
their channel?
I think basically for myself, I think we touched on so many things.
You got too much things going on. That's probably why.
But
Multitasking.
yeah, like Shoaib Saab said, and you said, Ismail Saab, that what he's done for the American people. I mean, if they only knew. If they only knew. If they only knew. And I feel like it's up to people like ourselves to show people and let people know what he's done and the generations of African American Muslims he's saved. It's up to us to let people know. You know, it's that story needs to be told as well.
I mean, so he basically said if they only knew, and that story needs to be told, and then proceeded to tell nothing. He didn't say anything.
But
I mean, if they only knew that Jelani actually was an ISI asset, that he was working for Pakistani intelligence. I'll help you out. If you only knew that, then maybe they would think differently.
Well, if they only knew that their sheikh said that they shouldn't follow an overweight sheikh.
If they only knew he had your wives over there making him food the whole time.
No, if they only knew that his grandma was capping, she told a lie when she said Ali radiallahu anhu came and took him up and taught him anything. If they only knew that was a lie.
If they only knew that Ali speaks Arabic and not Urdu.
if they only knew who Omicron is not a real thing.
It's a cave in Pakistan.
Sure it is, John. For sure it is.
If they only knew that Jelani's own father did not trust him enough to even take over the family business and gave it to his cousin instead. If they only knew that.
If they only knew that Mubarak Jelani actually considered African Americans slaves.
Wow.
If they only knew he was a cuck. Man, it starts out the only white person. This man starts out the only Caucasian man in the whole Jamaat and was like, listen, this halal has to be for my someone, and it ain't gonna be any of you blacks, all right? So go find me Matthew Gardner.
If they only knew Matthew.
I know what he's gonna say. Oh, y'all.
If they only knew Matthew Gardner.
I can't say it. We're gonna have to skip you.
We're gonna have to skip you, man. If
they only knew that their future imam would use she, her pronouns.
If they only knew their current respectful Khalifa, all right, Hussein Adams was a member of the astrology club, right, and used Tauruses and signs and all that dumb stuff.
If they only knew that Matthew Gardner had the hips of a black man.
So stupid.
If they only knew that Mubarak Jelani hasn't actually done anything tangible for any African American Muslims.
Yeah. If they only knew that Mubarak Jelani is his claim to fame or his ability as a sheikh is based on his ability just to read from books to you, and you're better readers than him. If you only knew, you could do a better job at being a sheikh for yourself than he does, because at least you understand.
If they only knew that when Jelani said he turned into a bird, this was the bird.
my God. Yo, you broke out the bird? That bird ain't flying nowhere.
What do you mean? This is a Sufi bird, all right? And it's a coach.
Man, you wasn't supposed to bring out the bird.
He's going back to his number one spot. That's what he tried.
I told you I had one.
Oh
No,
man.
yeah,
I'm-
no. If you only knew that, when that one of Jelani's go-to moves is to force young girls into marrying him. Just put enough pressure on them directly or on their parents to get married, and that is how all the wives that he did have that didn't leave him, that's what they were. The rest of them, like the adults that he married, they bounced. If you only knew that.
And if they only knew that all of Jelani's testosterone was actually passed on to his daughter Fatima.
If they only knew the other half of his testosterone went to Noor.
If they only knew that when Hussein Adams was saying that Jelani is having all types of pain due to the sins of the community, if they only knew that actually he just has diabetes and he was having diabetic nerve pain in his feet because, well, that's what happens to people who overeat and don't take care of their health, don't care to take care of their body. They get diabetes, and then that diabetes takes over their body to where they can't walk and they have to get their feet bandaged up. Like, I mean, we've seen the pictures where his feet are bandaged up and all that. So if they only knew that actually that pain that was allegedly coming from the community because of their sins, it just was diabetic nerve pain because he didn't take care of himself.
If they only knew that he had one of the TMOA doctors subscribe him medical marijuana to manage that holy pain that he was receiving.
If they only knew that when K2 fought the Jinn, him and Jelani both got their ass beat.
The Jinn's name was Mayweather.
If they only knew that Jelani ordered one of his followers to kill someone, and when that follower refused because killing someone actually was a friend of his is actually bad and haram, he actually then tried to have that person killed. They only knew.
If they only knew drinking water with hair in it actually didn't protect them from COVID.
If they only knew donating your last dollar to someone who has more money than you is stupid.
If they only knew that when he allegedly was in the truck that was overheating, and that it stopped overheating when he put the water in it, that probably because he put the water in the reservoir and then it stopped overheating for that time, then it boiled out and then it started overheating again. That's all it was. It's not a magic, it's not a miracle or anything like that.
If they only knew at the end of the story that he complains because the villagers ran him out of the city saying that he was a magician.
Oh my God. If they only knew that none of his sons are qualified because he wasn't qualified himself to teach.
If they only knew that he was, even though he allegedly was the sixth sultan, the Mujaddid of the century, and a sheikh so big that he can dub other people, unqualified people, Sheikh al-Islam, his own son not only had to go some random place and get educated, but he actually hates education altogether and has abandoned any sort of seeking any sort of knowledge, whether it be secular or Islamic.
If they only knew 40 years ago that 4 decades later, they would be in a worse spot they were when they started.
Yep. If they only knew that Hamil and perfect are the same word. So when they say Murshid, so when they say perfect Murshid Hamil, they're saying perfect Murshid perfect.
If they only knew that while they were doing all types of economic gymnastics to get their bills paid and to try to make ends meet over the years. The money that they were giving to Jelani, he was frivolously giving it away to his friends to do random risky business practices with it. And he was getting taken for a ride and getting his money stolen from him to the tune of millions of dollars.
If they knew that Mubarak Jelani, even within his own family, was considered Islamically deviant and ignorant.
If they only knew that when y'all asked for names for your kids from heaven, it was actually Onur naming them.
If they only knew that his claim to fame being the sixth sultan was actually plagiarized from another deviant Sufi group that he was a part of and got bounced from.
If they only knew that Mubarak Jelani had multiple parents commit crimes, murders, assassination, spent years in jail, on the run, hiding in different countries, while Mubarak Jelani actually never did anything himself.
Mm-hmm. If they only knew he wasn't on the no-fly list, he just didn't want to pay for 2 tickets. All right.
I see what you did. I see what you did.
Oh man.
I think I'm out of what's it called?
If they only
the
knew.
safe ones. I think I'm out of the safe ones.
Yeah, right.
What I will say though is that so this brother here, right, who had the minute clip on their YouTube channel, he did the similar tactic to his leader K2. And this idea where K2 has said, like, I have many of a hadith and the Quran and Sunnah that I can quote, but I'm not gonna do that at this point in time. So you go on this minute speech about the things that we don't know, and how you can give us the things we don't understand about Jelani. I would question you to do so. I would beg you to do so. If you can tell me something about Jelani that I do not know, all right. So if you know more about Jelani than my parents, especially my parents, if you know more about Jelani than my parents and that I would know, please tell us, because if you have this knowledge, right, and it's only if we knew, you can give us the knowledge. You can just tell us, hey, this is what he did. And y'all watch all our content, so y'all can just go post a clip, a video, saying all the things that Mubarak Jelani did. You saw him move the moon, sure, whatever. You didn't say anything at all in that clip. You just danced around the topic and were like, okay, well, if they only knew, if they only knew, if they only knew.
All they will ever be able to say is stuff that their parents did, that their parents will give credit to Mubarak Jelani. And they have to really stop, like, just even the name of their channel, American Muslim History. How are you going to say that this this insignificant group of cult is American Muslims? You're not. It's like us saying, the Muslims of the world are denying our TMOA. No, it's just us. We're not going to say we represent all the Muslims in the entire world. Like, you got to stop doing that, because this is the stuff that they've been doing for the last, at least since I've been around the Jama'ah. It's just this propaganda. All this propaganda. It's just propaganda, and it's bullcrap. Mubarak Jelani has not done anything for the African American Muslims, and so you guys made this little clip about, it's our job to do it. It's our job to tell them. I bet you won't tell us anything.
Yep.
I bet you won't say anything. I bet you'll just talk about we moved to the lands. We moved to the lands, and he taught us this Darood, Darood Salam, and Shaji, man. The whole talk would be a bunch of, man, Acha, GG.
Back then, man.
I mean, hold up. And on top of that, they try to say, okay, American. They said American Muslim history. Y'all dudes don't even look like Americans. You look like you dress like Pakistanis. So I mean, maybe you should rename the channel. He wannabe Pakistani Hindi
Afropac.
Desi, Afropac, Afropac cult history. I mean, y'all. So I mean, it's like the majority of Muslims in America don't dress like y'all
at all.
I mean, like y'all wear y'all regular clothes or whatever, I'm sure. But like when y'all want to dress up and look like a Muslim, no, you just look like someone who's from Pakistan or India. But the majority of American Muslims and Muslims of African descent do not dress like that.
Yes, because there's so many African countries that are Muslim that you can go to, or just get. There's brothers everywhere, sisters everywhere that sell African clothes. Like I'm wearing a Moroccan thobe. You can buy clothes from African nations. Like when y'all get married, it's just straight like Pakistani clothes. It's weird. And the Pakistanis looking at y'all like, what are these African Americans doing?
Yeah. But if they only knew when someone tried to gift their beloved Morshid Kamil some traditional African clothing, he became irate and berated the brother who gave it to him.
Yep.
So I mean, he by his words, his actions, and deeds, except for the ladies, he does like a few African ladies.
As light as you can be, though. All right, you better not be a hint of brown or dark skin. All right. And one more thing for the American Muslim channel, you guys do realize that if you post a clip of Mubarak Jilani, right, your former spiritual leader, right, and he's speaking, and he has to have subtitles for him to speak, right? You are admitting that he does not speak English very well. All right. So when I saw a clip, all right, and I was like, oh, there you go. The nigga, I mean, the brother is not speaking English inside of the clip at all, because he was like, and you know this, it's like, well, huh? And so you have to have subtitles for him because he doesn't speak English very well. All right. So he wasn't perfect because the English was terrible.
Let me tell a quick story before we wrap this up. So it was one of the last retreats I went to, and for some reason, Mubarak Jilani said that he said that we needed to learn English. No lie.
He said, who needs to learn English?
He said we needed to learn English. We need to learn proper English. So they had actually English classes at the retreat, right? And there was a couple of funny things. One, he had them teaching the Queen's English, right?
Hey,
so we had to learn like British vocabulary, right? Because that's the type of English they learn, because they were colonized by the British, so that's the type of English they learn. So his mind was like, this is proper English. Well, that's just British English, right? So they were teaching, like, we were learning like the articulated trolley, and we had to write essays using British words, right? And we're just thinking like, this is the dumbest thing ever, because no one's ever going to use this in real life unless they go work in England or something like that, right? So, and then I remember I forget which camp leader it was, but they actually said out their mouths that Jilani knows better English than all of us. And I was like,
damn
okay.
Lie. That's like the it's like when you have like a king or emperor or someone who really does not even belong in the place. They're really not the leader. It's really their advisors that are around him are really the leader, which I'm not saying Jilani was in this situation, but it's similar to where you'll have the people that are around that leader or king or whatever saying stuff that's clearly not true. It's blatantly just not true. I mean, anyone who fixes their mouth to say Jilani had good English, let alone better English than anyone in America, anyone is a liar. I mean, no, he was a poor English speaker compared to what you would expect from someone who was supposed to be,
telemarketers.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's not even close for someone to fix their face and say he speaks English better than all of y'all. No, I mean, listen. Okay, I'll speak for myself. He don't speak English better than me. He never has. He never has.
Well, you know what? It's one of those fun, because when I was doing the project, it's one of the things that, looking back, one of the things that kind of like sparked a light, because you had this idea that he was like this perfect, intelligent, knowledgeable man. And as I'm transcribing, I'm like, I had to fix all the stuff he was saying to make it like legible, to make it proper.
Yeah.
You know, so like, oh wait, he's making a lot of mistakes. You know what I mean? That's like that starts down the road of like, okay, well, if he can make mistakes, then that means he's not from Allah because he's making mistakes. You know, so
I'm gonna need at this point someone send me a clip of him speaking Urdu so I can compare it to like native Pakistanis, because maybe language just wasn't his thing. You know, maybe speaking wasn't his strong suit at all. He just like messed up just
you know
all
what?
languages.
There's a theme with all this stuff. Like we
Mhm.
talked about, like Jelani being clear, like he wasn't a great leader. He wasn't like he had no like management skills. You know, he was good as far as like getting people to follow him and control people. He was good at that. But as far as everything else, he was absolute failure at, right? But people were so desperate to like make him right about everything and make him the expert at everything. You could really see in Milano's Best, this is what happened, where he just got so used to just saying stuff and people being like, oh yes, that's right, that he just kept like, oh yeah, you know what? I am the expert on everything. I know about eggs. I know about farming. I know about business. I know about English. I know about education. I know about architecture. I know about everything you asked me about. I am the expert on. And they made him that way. And you can see how, like, if you're in that position, how that's like a very deadly trap where everybody's really telling you you're the best thing and everything you're saying is right. Imagine 40 years of that. At some point, you got to be like, you know, like even Rasulullah sallallahu, you have the hadith about where he told them like not to breed the dates, or I think it was, and then they didn't do it. Then the crop didn't like succeed, and he was like, listen, y'all the experts on that. Like, don't listen to me. Listen to me with Islamic stuff. That stuff you guys know better than me. You know what I mean? So like, that's even Rasul sallallahu.
Yeah. It's ridiculous, man. It's like he's the super hot fire of Sufi shit.
Oh yeah, Allah. Do we have questions in the chat before we wrap, inshallah?
I think we're good.
Yeah.
We got some. If they only knew in the we might be able to read those up. If they only knew that Mubarak Jelani's sins were not because of his talibs.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they only knew there was.
If they only knew there was no such thing as the seven sultans. Yep. Correct. If they only knew where the money went. Keep it going. If they only knew why he never came back to America.
Yeah.
If they only knew that MG didn't care what happened in Jamaat until it made him look bad. If they only knew MG was the only one confirming he was the sixth sultan.
That's the one right there.
Yeah.
The only one. It's like, check my references. You call his references as him. Yeah, hello. Yeah, he's good. He's good to go. He's legit.
This man cited his sources and it was himself. This man was like, all right, cited by the EGM methodology, and then he's the EGM methodology. It's like, fam, what is this? Like, he's his own scholarly source.
Next time I have to write a paper, I'm gonna quote myself and see what that gets me the grade or not. They'd be like, "Where's your references?" Yeah, I got them.
Yeah,
yeah.
A wise man once said,
2022 parentheses said,
"I've been telling you, Sahih Mubarak."
Oh yeah. I mean, and everything's like that too. Like even they had that one clip where he was talking about the whole truck thing. If he tells that story in almost every discourse, it's just him telling the story. No witnesses, nobody else confirming this. Yeah. Same thing with the moon movings and all this other bull crap they keep. I'm just waiting for them to put out this content. And if they're watching this, put out the content of what supposedly Mubarak Jelani did for African Americans, what he did for your actual Jamaat that wasn't done by your leaders, and start putting some of Mubarak Jelani's educational content out there.
Yep.
So people can assess it and see, like, is this guy a real sheikh? Is he a real scholar?
Do y'all want to, or maybe we can do it on another show. I don't know, but the address the lady who was praising Jelani for all the things that he allegedly did while her father was the one who was shamed and basically dishonored and disgraced by that very sheikh that she's praising. I think maybe we should cover it in another show, but yeah.
So next show we'll cover that, and we also have to talk about how we're gonna the future format of
the show,
of the R2F show and some of our R2F content.
Yeah.
Inshallah. And I'm pretty sure some other nonsense will get posted that we could talk about.
Oh yeah, the
I mean
K2 speech at the for the Milad that we have to cover, or the Malad. Yeah.
Gosh, yeah.
Man, it's something.
Again, people, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. This stuff is getting old. It's the same old story over and over and over again. And I just want before we close, I just want to say for those of you that are in TMOA and you know this stuff is false and you know these beliefs are shirk. In Islam, we cannot have knowledge without action. You have to have both. You have to act upon the knowledge that you have. So we have people that are still in TMOA, people that are actually in administrative type positions that are still actually being used as part of the abuse, and you're not doing anything to separate yourself from that. You're not speaking up against what's going on, and you're not separating yourself from that. You have to be very careful about the position that you're putting yourself in, because it's very hypocritical that you don't believe in this stuff and you recognize it's wrong, but you're actually still part of facilitating these transgressions and the shirk and the innovations and all the different things that go on in TMOA. Check yourselves. I
mean. So shukran everyone for tuning in to this week's show for the R2F. I'll be back in 2 weeks, inshallah, on I believe November 24th. So inshallah we'll see you there. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.